So welcome and thank you for being here. I'm Kristen Schwartz, author and illustrator of With Love from Tahoe, stories about simple things we can do to protect Lake Tahoe. And I'm here with my Spanish translator for the book, Mari Escalante. Yay! Last year, I got a microgrant from the City of South Lake Tahoe Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission to produce this illustrated book of stories about how to protect Lake Tahoe. But it's more than a collection of stories. I created it as a resource for people so they could learn how to take care of Tahoe and other natural spaces. But it's also for anyone who wants to protect Lake Tahoe and start conversations about the issues. Having a variety of voices and ways to tackle these issues from different directions is really important. So I hope this book can also inspire people to protect Tahoe in other ways. This presentation is about the book, but it's also about the power of art and storytelling to do things like this. Mari and I are going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at this community-based project, and then we'll read one of the stories that took an unexpected direction. This project took hundreds of hours, but it was a joy to work on, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out and the reactions that we're getting from it so far. So I hope it helps a lot of people learn and talk about the issues and inspires you to think about how your skills could protect Tahoe and other natural spaces. If you haven't downloaded your copy yet, I put the link in the comments. It's free, no strings attached, no email required, and I hope you'll spread the word. This project started for me during the pandemic. We were seeing a lot of destructive behavior that we weren't seeing before during the pandemic. I think because there were many more people coming here and they were in places that they weren't usually in. So along our river, we were seeing a lot of trash, like diapers and remnants of picnics, and it was really disturbing. We were also hearing frustration from the community, and that's understandable. No one really knew what to do. So out of frustration, there was a lot of blaming and name calling, and then the people they were blaming were yelling back. So that was really difficult, and I didn't know what to do. I really wanted to help people understand the issues, but I'm pretty quiet. Being otherwise for very long isn't sustainable for me, and I thought I had to use a big voice to do anything. So I just didn't know what to do, and I felt pretty hopeless and helpless to do anything meaningful. So I did what a lot of people do, I think. When they're looking for answers and searching, I searched online. I got on there and I started asking questions like, how do I talk to people who are yelling? And why do people harm nature? What in the world is going on? How do I help people understand? And through these questions, that's how I found the person who helped me figure out how I could help. And that person was Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, chief scientist for the Nature Conservancy. And she wrote a book I had never heard of. This was a few years back, called Saving Us. And she answered the questions that I had through the book. So through her book, she puts emphasis on talking about the issues. And that was something that I didn't know would be helpful, just having conversations. That was the most important thing we can do. It's not some huge activity that you have to create. It's just talking about it. And the answer to, by the way, how do you talk to people who are yelling? You don't. That's just not, it's a no-win. So while I was focused on differences of how people communicate, Dr. Hayhoe focused on similarities and connecting through shared values. And in this case, for this project, we're connecting through the love of Tahoe, but also connecting through things that we hopefully all want, like clean air and clean water, a healthy forest that isn't burning. And she also placed emphasis on starting locally because issues in our own backyard are also happening in many other places. So when we share with people things we learn or problems we share, it ripples out to more and more people. Then she said, use your unique skills. You don't have to become someone you're not. That was a huge gift and a relief. These were all things I felt I could do. So while I was coming up with ideas, this opportunity came up, this grant from the South Lake Tahoe Arts, Culture, and Tourism Commission, and their criteria fit. This was in February of 2023. So that's how it began. And the skills from my background that made this project possible, creating a book was a no-brainer for me because I've been a graphic designer, illustrator, and storyteller for over 35 years. I've been producing books for other people, both small publishers and individuals, for 30 years, doing book design, layout, and illustration. And I've also had my own storytelling projects. You may know some of my projects and exhibits. Fairy medicine was one where I chronicled the historic worldwide uses of medicinal plants through short form storytelling. And also more recently, through my illustrated public interest stories, where I talk about how humans affect nature. So why story? I have a lifelong love of stories, especially everyday stories people tell. Stories bring people together. It's entertaining and engaging, and I just love the way different people tell stories. People tell stories all day long, and storytelling is how humans survive, understand the world, connect with each other, and they've been doing it since before written language. But it's the perfect art form when you want to communicate deeply in a relatable way, and neuroscience tells us so. Neuroscience shows compelling stories light up our brain, quite literally. When you look at a brain that is fed a good story, different parts of the brain and more parts of the brain light up than if you supply someone data alone. These stories help engage us empathetically. So by tapping into, oh, and by the way, here's my reference for the neuroscience bit, and I'm happy to send you information about this. It's really interesting. But by tapping into audience values and weaving in facts and data, and then adding some images like illustrations, we can connect more deeply, and people can get a broader understanding, a deeper understanding for the topic. And the stories can bring about realizations that can change behavior while building unity, openness, and curiosity about solving imminent issues. I also love the way visitor centers and museums can do this and convey really complex topics. Picture books do this too. So why a digital book? This is something that a lot of people have been asking me. A digital book is more accessible. More people can get this information if they have access to a computer, even if it's a public computer. They can read a PDF in their browser. They can download it to their devices. It's less cost to produce a digital book than printing a book. There's also zero waste. There is a lot of waste in publishing a book. They're always printing more books than are necessary, and there are mistakes made in printing. So digital is a great way to go. So I started this project with the Earth Week topics as the structure of the book. and it officially started in May 2023. And those topics are sustainability, microplastics, wildlife, clean water, wildfire, and pollution and climate change. Next, I approached local organizations and asked them several questions that would help kind of direct those topics, direct writing the stories. I wanted to find the number one issues so that I could actually help these organizations spread their information. So one of the questions, what is the number one human activity that negatively impacts whatever the organization's focus is? And then what is the most essential behavior for people to change? And what can they do instead? It was important for me to ask people from the organizations these questions because I wanted additional insights that they had about the issues. But where I didn't get responses, I read every report they had written that I could find to discover what the biggest problems were. And I also looked at the organization's educational materials to see what they were emphasizing. Next, I did a community survey in English and Spanish to get local viewpoints on each topic direction that I pulled from the responses. The survey was out for 6 weeks. There were 7 questions, and it was really important for me not to use multiple choice because I wanted to get people's emotions. I wanted their frustrations. I wanted their insights. I wanted their personal experiences so that I could develop more detail for the stories. I received about 90 responses, and I got some really insightful answers, which was fantastic. But I also saw where there were some knowledge gaps where people needed more information. Sometimes when I presented a topic, they said, oh yeah, no, that's not even an issue. That's not a problem, when it actually was. So with those things in mind, I researched and began writing these stories and putting together alternatives for people to use in place of harmful behaviors. And then I ran my ideas and stories past additional community experts. I edited, researched, and kept doing that over and over. And I sought as much feedback as I could. I also had amazing support from my mentored visual art and storytelling community, which was really essential. The most important story aspects for me were first, these stories had to be short, as close to 200 words as I could get so that I wasn't overwhelming people and people could digest this information easily. I also wanted to do a compassionate exploration of human behavior. Why were people doing destructive things to the environment? What was going on? What were they thinking about? I don't believe that everyone is out there hurting nature on purpose. Maybe some people are, but I really wanted to think about why they might be doing it. And there are groups online, public groups, specifically for people who love Tahoe. And I was kind of looking at their responses to posts and things that they would say or do to see where the knowledge gaps for people unfamiliar with Tahoe were. I wanted to easily convey a lot of information in these stories, what the problem was, why people were doing the things they were doing, and what they can do instead. I also wanted to provide why the behavior is harmful, because I think that's important when we're talking about changing our behavior. If we know why something is harmful, we might be more apt to change what we're doing because we have a better understanding. But the overall one, I wanted to start with raising awareness, provide easy alternatives, And then approachable information for all ages. Of course, very young people will need their families to assist them, but I wanted this information to be super accessible and then provide accessible references for further exploration. In the back of the book, for each part of every story where a reference was used, I supplied that information so that people can do some more exploration. And then, after the stories were written, I started making sketches to capture emotion and also to convey information that wasn't in the text. So this sketch on the right is from the wildlife story, and then the sketch on the left is from the microplastics story. And while all of this was going on, I was interviewing Spanish translators. And I had some criteria that were important to me when I was interviewing and having conversations through email as well. Number one, I really wanted a storyteller. It was important to me because telling stories is different than translating signage or information for a brochure. So I went to my children's publishing community, which has a very lively Spanish translator, or well, a translator community in general, but I knew that I would be able to find a really good Spanish translator for story. I wanted someone who was caring and passionate about the topics. So a background of doing things in these areas and a familiarity with the topics. And I wanted someone who's adept at nuanced language for the topics. And that's why they needed to have a little bit of a background there. And then knowledge of using neutral language so that many communities, many Spanish-speaking communities would relate to the words used in the stories. That was very important to me because our community, our Spanish-speaking community is diverse. And then all of the people that come here from Spanish-speaking communities are coming from all over the world. So that perfect match that I found was Mari Escalante. And not only does she fit all of these areas, but she has been such a joy to work with. So I want to stop sharing my screen for a little bit and let Mari talk about her background and anything else she wants to talk about. So let me do that now. Okay, there you go, Mari.
Yes, thank you, Kristen. How lovely. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Gracias, familia y amigos que están acompañándonos esta tarde en este momento importante para nosotros. It's a special moment for Kristen and I to be here at this time with the project finalized and letting, sharing it with the world. I really feel very thankful and fortunate because this was, happened. And I started translating when I was in college for school. I have a biomedical background and um, we were giving, I'm from Mexico and I did my bachelor's there. Um, and a lot of the bibliography was in Spanish, in English, I'm sorry. So I was one of the few students who was passionate about language, and I was able to translate for my classmates, and then we all studied in Spanish. So that's how it started. And then when I came to the US via New York, to pursue a graduate degree. My English was like really little, very basic. I knew how to read it, and I understood it. I understood written Spanish, but I wasn't really speaking it. So it took me a while, the first couple of years, and then moving forward, here I am. I never thought this, I never dreamed of this, becoming a translator and translating books. I love children's literature. Through my children, my two children, I was able to immerse deeper in the English language. And it was really thanks to them, reading when they were little, that my English really expanded greatly. And here we are. It's just like really, it's very special for me. So I had a great time, being chosen for this project. I'm also very, passionate about what we're doing to our planet, how we, things that we can do. What can we do more at an individual level, at a family level, um, to do our chore, and then bring it to others, share the responsibility with others. So I'm really happy to be here.
That's great, Mari. Did you have anything else to share? Do you want to go ahead and read the wildlife story with me?
Yes, I could give a little brief in Spanish for the Spanish speakers in the
Okay.
house. Um, acabo de compartir que yo empecé a hacer traducción cuando estaba en la universidad en México. Am, Me tocaba traducir los artículos que nos daban en inglés, y después para todos mis compañeros los traducía y estudiábamos en español. Y ahí fue que empezó mi carrera como traductora, que nunca me imaginé que después de llegar a Estados Unidos, a través de Nueva York, iba a convertirme en traductora. Y eso, aparte de que después de mis 2 hijos, me pude sumergir en el idioma inglés mucho más profundamente, aprender mucho más inglés a través de los libros para niños. Poco a poco se fue dando que me convirtiera en traductora de libro infantil, y aquí estoy. Me siento muy afortunada que Kristen me haya escogido como traductora para este libro, y también porque, como ella mencionó, desde muy joven me llamaba la atención las cosas que hacíamos, eh, que le hacíamos al planeta, ¿no? En cuanto al agua, la contaminación, etcétera. Así que me siento muy contenta y afortunada de estar aquí, y qué bueno que nos acompañan. Am, I think I will leave it to curiosity from the audience, what else they like to know about us, about our project. And I just can tell that it is not, you just don't need to speak the other language to become a translator. It is amazing when you have more than one language and you can communicate to different audiences or more. But sometimes it really takes a lot more than just to speak that other language in order to have it in a book. So it takes a little more than that. But again, it's been a joyful experience for me.
That's excellent, Mari. I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and we'll read the wildlife story and then we'll have questions and answers after that. I think that that'll be great. One of the surprising responses that I got came from Lake Tahoe Wildlife Care. So we're going to read a story related to this. But I did want to mention that when they responded, the response was really surprising. And it was, social media is one of the biggest issues that affects the wildlife, especially the bears. Denise went on to talk about how bears become habituated to humans getting too close to them, people taking selfies and even baiting them with food. And that was shocking to me. It wasn't the response I was expecting. I had all kinds of ideas for what I thought might be the issue. So that's the direction the story took. And once I knew this information that she gave me, I started seeing this issue all over the place. And you may have seen news yourselves recently of people getting too close to wildlife or pulling bear cubs out of trees. And that was a lot of information to get across in 200 words. So that's the story that we're going to read today. I did a challenge with friends to take as many selfies as possible with wildlife. We may have accidentally dropped food to get better photos.
Llevé a cabo un reto con amigos para tomar tantas selfies como fuera posible con animales silvestres. Puede que accidentalmente hayamos dejado caer comida para tomar mejores fotos.
In Tahoe, I got the most adorable photos of bear cubs. They weren't afraid at all.
En Tahoe saqué las fotos más adorables de osesnos. No nos tuvieron nada de miedo,
But then, out of nowhere, the mama bear came toward us, making scary noises.
aunque luego, de la nada, la mamá osa vino hacia nosotros haciendo ruidos aterradores.
Luckily, people nearby knew what to do. They also explained the problems with what we had done. Not only is it dangerous, it's against the law because it's harmful to wildlife and people.
Por suerte, la gente que estaba cerca supo qué hacer. Además, también nos explicaron los problemas que habíamos ocasionado. No solo es peligroso, va en contra de la ley porque es perjudicial para la fauna silvestre y la gente.
When people get close to wildlife or feed them, they become too comfortable with us. It's called habituation. Habituated bears often break into homes, cars, and campsites for easy food, but it prevents them from getting the foods from nature they need to survive.
Cuando la gente se acerca a la fauna silvestre o la alimenta, ellos adquieren confianza con nosotros. Se le llama habituación. Con frecuencia, los osos habituados irrumpen en las casas, en los autos y en las áreas de acampar para obtener comida fácil. Pero esto evita que obtengan de la naturaleza los alimentos que necesitan para sobrevivir.
Destructive bears that aren't afraid of humans are also dangerous. They're sometimes killed by authorities. Rarely does one get another chance in a sanctuary. That broke my heart.
Los osos destructores que no le temen a los humanos también son peligrosos. Algunas veces son sacrificados por las autoridades. Rara vez alguno tiene otra oportunidad en un santuario. Eso me partió el corazón.
We saw so many others taking selfies like ours. It seemed harmless. It wasn't.
Vimos a muchos otros tomando selfies como las nuestras. Parecía inofensivo. No lo era.
Now we keep our distance and zoom in for photos without food. Tahoe is a wildlife area. It's essential to keep it wild.
Ahora mantenemos nuestra distancia y usamos el zoom para tomar fotos, sin darles comida. Tahoe es un área de fauna silvestre. Es fundamental mantenerla así.
So now it's your turn. What can you do? The simplest thing, of course, is to prevent these issues from happening. So talking about the issues and sharing things you learn is really important. And remember to connect through shared values. Find the places where we all connect, whether it's through an activity or a hobby or the things that we share as far as wanting clean air and wanting clean water. Start locally because that ripples out and we have similar problems all around the world. But you can find your own best way to contribute to solutions also. Maybe you are good at letter writing. We always need good letter writers, whether it's writing to companies or the government or letters to the editor. It's always helpful. You might be good at networking or having events. You might be a musician or a songwriter or a writer of books. You might be in the theater, or you might be good at finding grants and writing them. If your intentions are centered on the good of all concerned, there's no wrong way to go about this. You don't have to become superhuman or act in a way that doesn't fit you. And I hope that you find inspiration to do your own things that help with this. So we're going to open this up for Q&A. And also I wanted to mention that Mari is going to be in Tahoe in June, and we're going to do a live event. If you're in Tahoe, we're going to announce those details later. You can sign up at the link, same link as the download link to get details when we know more. But I'm going to stop sharing.
I
Yeah.
just want to
Oh,
mention that,
uh-huh.
yeah, in Spanish, that why we read about wildlife. Leímos este texto sobre fauna silvestre porque los osos que se encuentran no solamente en Lake Tahoe, sino en muchas otras zonas, no tan solo en Estados Unidos y en el mundo entero, porque es una de las especies más afectadas por la contaminación humana, y por eso hemos escogido para esta presentación hoy leer un poco de la fauna silvestre y cómo se ven afectados los osos por la contaminación que hacemos nosotros. Vamos ahora a pasar a las preguntas y respuestas.
Thanks so much, Maria. I really appreciate you doing that. For questions, you can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and unmute to ask the question. Whatever you're most comfortable with is great. We're happy for the conversation. Oh, that's great. Chris would love to know more about the translation process. Was it pretty straightforward, or were there aspects you had to change in order for it to make sense? It's a good question.
Yes, you got me started. It was, first of all, when I first got the text, I, there was a lot of things that where it was a learning experience for me too. There were some things that I wasn't fully aware of, and there are other things obviously that were I found it beautifully written in English, and I just fell in love, as it usually happens with me, with the projects that I get to translate. And it was the process goes like I do a first draft of the whole text, the whole manuscript, and then there are times when it's pretty easy and it's pretty straightforward. But then when I go back to revise and to do a second round, I start finding things that weren't as easy as they seemed in the beginning. So there were, for the most part, I think it was, I didn't find a lot of challenges. The couple of challenges that I found were, in a couple of words that I wasn't sure, like I wanted to keep, we have like 24 more, a couple more Spanish speaking countries. So we, as translator, want to keep some sort of neutrality when we translate, so we get the message across, right? So that's one of the aspects that we need to keep in mind. Sometimes unconsciously, we will use words that are more regional, and they are not easy for others to understand, or they will mean something else in a different country, right? So we have to be careful with that. There is a lot of research involved in the way I do my translation projects. It's not just that, I speak Spanish and then I find it easier. The texts are short, but sometimes short texts are more challenging than longer. So it all depends on the content, the use of words, the tone, there has to be harmony, right? Starting with the title, it seems easy, and there are times when the order has to change, to keep it more to pronounce easier than you will do when it's a literal translation. That's another aspect. You don't want it to sound too literal because it doesn't flow. I think a great translation is that one where when the reader can read it and feel that it's been written in that language, that is a great translation. And sometimes that is hard to achieve, especially in literary translation. I used to do more technical translation. That has to be precise. You cannot, science and medicine are very precise. You use the right terms, or otherwise people will be really confused about it. You will end up meaning something else. And with literary translation, one of the aspects I love about it is that you can be creative, and you can use different terms and mean the same thing, right? But also in the case of Spanish, where a lot of countries speak Spanish, you have to be also kind of neutral, use words that are more known to others in all other countries, or those Spanish-speaking communities in the US. So yeah, I encounter some challenges, and when you have an open communication with the author, that becomes less challenging, and even playful. We had conversations, and then we decided what words we wanted to use, and so it was at the end not a hassle, even though it was challenging. And there are words that exist in one language and do not exist in another. And then you have to explain, because like there are words that might be appropriate, but they sound like awkward. People won't know. We don't really use those words. And I'll speak more as we, get deeper in the conversation.
Well, I also wanted to mention that going through this process with Mari was fantastic for my part of the writing also, because um, there were a couple times where Mari said, I'm translating this sentence and it's not going well. I need some clarification, and that's where I discovered, well, actually, if I reordered this sentence, as we talked about it, it would be better in English. So it's like this back and forth was really helpful for the English version as well. So I loved it. I love language, and it was just great working with Mari. So fascinating indeed, Chris. Um, were there more questions? Well, about anything, whether it's about the translation or about the stories. Was there anything else? So Karen says, you said you were surprised by Tahoe Wildlife Care's response. Were there other surprises too, or were most of the responses close to what you expected? Um, I, most of the responses were what I expected, and I think that's what made the Tahoe Wildlife Care response even more surprising, because I thought I had a pretty good idea of what I was going to be up against. But I did, in researching the stories, find details that were surprising. And then there were other experiences that people shared that informed the stories that were surprising, such as finding plastic in bear scat, specifically dog poop in bags with full dog poop bags in bear scat. That was super surprising. So yeah, I think that was the main thing. And then while I was researching, I also discovered, before it was widely known that how big our microplastic problem was, that we're the third most polluted lake in microplastics. So that was surprising. Um, yeah, but I think that's pretty much it on that. And Paula asked, are you currently contemplating any future books or manuscripts on this topic? Yeah, all of the work that I've been doing is centered around how humans affect nature. And I've been working on another project for a couple years now, and this would be a traditionally published book that I'll be submitting to publishers. And it's about destructive traditions that we have. And I can't go much more into it, but it's a fascinating topic. And I think that that's going to be a fun one to work on now that this project is over. I had been working on the other one for quite a while, but and then Angelia asked, you mentioned knowledge gaps in the surveys that you were surprised by. Can you share? Yes. So one of the topics that I think is going to be the most difficult for people and even the most controversial is about dog waste. And so when I got responses from people, some people said when I asked if they were familiar with this topic and how they felt about it, they said, oh, that's not even an issue. Not cleaning up dog waste outside. And so that was one of the areas of where there was a knowledge gap. That was the biggest one, actually. I'm trying to think of other ones. That was the main one. I mean, some people said that they weren't seeing plastic litter out and about, and that was amazing to me. I mean, that I see it everywhere. So, that wasn't necessarily a knowledge gap, but just an awareness difference. Um, what illustration was the toughest to nail down, and what about it caused such a challenge? Oh, wow, that's such a great question, Manny. Um, because there were quite a few that were challenging that I did over and over. Um, oh my gosh, now I'm drawing a blank. Um, it may be the wildlife story, that whole story, because there was so much information to get across, the destructions that the bears were causing, what to focus on. Because we do have bears that break into homes here. So, how do I show that? I think that I think probably every story had one illustration that really was more challenging than another. And I think that anytime I thought an illustration was going to be easy, that was the one that tripped me up. So I wish that I have the book file in front of me. The cover, I did the cover several times. I'm just thumbing through here real quick. Um, yeah, it's such a good question, but I think that it was the wildlife ones that were the main ones. Um, and then Carlos says the goal of this project is to reach people who visit Lake Tahoe. What direct actions are to be taken to make these stories easy to access at Lake Tahoe? Um, you know, I'm I'm talking to people a lot. Yesterday, I walked 12 miles, sharing the book with people, and also sharing the QR codes for the book at different businesses. And I think talking to as many people as I can, and then um, our talk that we'll be giving in June, but also at the Earth Day Festival. I'll be there sharing the book with people and talking about it. Um, and then this recording will also be shared. And I'm hoping that organizations in town and also the city of South Lake Tahoe will share information about this too, whether it's in a visitor capacity, visitor centers or any kind of any kind of area where visitors are going to be looking for information. There are also groups online that are specifically centered around Lake Tahoe. And those groups would also benefit from having this book available. So I hope that that helps. Um, to
I
see if,
wanted to share something
yes, please.
that I was at the gathering yesterday with some friends, and then this came up, right? I invited them to join today, and I explained a little bit what the new book, the new translation of this book was about. And they, one of them, and at the house where we were in, mentioned that they're having problems with it's not skunks, it's raccoons. And so he's like, so what do we do with this raccoon? It keeps coming back, and he wasn't sure whether this is a new house. They've been living there like for a few months only, and all of a sudden they have a problem. And so and just jokingly he was saying, like I this is gonna sound strong, but he thought like maybe just killing the raccoon will do. And then I'm like, another one will come. I don't think that's it sounds like an easy solution, but that's not it. And I think, and I always have said this, with the rodent problem in New York City, right? And Paris and other places and mice, we coexist with these animals, and we have to learn the way to coexist. Uh, and not harm each other, right? So I mentioned actually a little bit about the bears, and how it's not just something that it's happening in Lake Tahoe. This happens everywhere there are bears, right? I remember taking a walk around a pond that I go sometimes, in Richmond, Virginia. And then I see that there are signs that say, do not feed, do not give human food to the geese. Yet I see, families with children that bring a package of white bread, and, feed the whole package to all the geese there. And that brings up, like, what do? We know that we're seeing something and that is not right, and these people actually don't know that that's harmful. They're not reading the signs, they're like far away from where they position themselves to feed the geese and have fun with the kids. And those are little steps that we can do, right? Like, what do we do? I think about, the way you wrote these books, and how to bring people um, the skills and the knowledge to do something without telling them this is what you have to do. And I thought that was one of the beauties about the whole book.
Oh, thanks, Mari. Those are such good points, and that's a big part of the book as well, is like not telling people what to do, but raising awareness, because at least, now people know. And when I was talking to people about the book yesterday, I was talking to some people that aren't even in the United States, and also others who are in other parts of the United States. And they were relating the issues that they have where they are, and they're going, oh, this totally applies to where I am. People in Australia, people on the other side of the United States. So it's all of these things that are in the book are things that can be applied elsewhere. And so just sharing the information, because I know that, Mari, you have talked to, when you were working on the book too, you had conversations that got started, and with people, and there was even someone with a Keep Tahoe Blue sticker on their car way over on the other side of the United States. So we're all connected in so many ways and have so much in common. So I don't know. I just think that story is a great way to share that information and relate to each other. Um, oh, here's another question from Manny. Did Mari get to see the illustrations for the translation? If so, was there one that inspired the translation for the accompanying text for Mari? If she didn't, would have preferred that way, thinking back?
Yes, great. Thank you, Manny, for such a lovely question. I did not get to see most of the illustrations. I think
Just the
when I
sketches.
finally, yeah, when Kristen and I interview me for for that translation, um, I I think you only, when I found out that I was the one who's going to be translating, um, Kristen sent me, yeah, a sketch or two, a sample, right? And I think that was what was of the process of choosing a translator. You sent a little bit of text accompanied with a sketch or two. And then when I finally knew that I was going to do it, um, Kristen sent me the whole manuscript, and then I think also a couple of sketches, but not the whole, because you were still working on it, I think.
I sent, when you were ready to translate, I sent the book layout with the rough sketches. So that, because since the sketches had a little bit of information in them that maybe the text didn't, it gave you context, but they weren't final. Um,
Right.
I just thought it
So
would be
yeah,
helpful.
and I don't think I needed them. The way the text was written was just so clear and to the point and very. There were a couple of paragraphs or sentences that were kind of ambiguous, I think, and I needed clarification, but that happened just way towards the end of the translation when I wasn't satisfied with it. I didn't think I was getting the right message myself in English. And so Kristen and I met and went over. And that's when, even in English, I think those were some of the sentences that were challenging for her in English, given that sometimes you have limitation, like the word count, which comes larger in Spanish. We when you translate from English to Spanish, the text is more or less about 10% longer than the English original. So I don't recall needing to see any of the illustrations previously or during the translation. What I did was that to get to know a little bit more of Kristen's work as an illustrator, I went to see her webpage, and then I fell in love with one of the creatures that she had in the front of her webpage at the time. I can't recall the name right now, but it's a very cute creature that if I knew it existed, I had forgotten it about it.
It was a pica.
Yeah, and I'm like, how do we call that in Spanish? That ignited a lot of curiosity. And the illustrations, when I got to see a little bit more, like the cover, um, it just like guess just made me realize that it was becoming alive. It was like more complete, but I don't think I felt the need to see the illustrations. Maybe there was one, few, it was signage, I think, that I saw in the text where I translated it, and then I kind of like by common sense, I realized that that was something that, it was going to be depicted on something in the illustration. So those things were like easy to understand. And then obviously when you see it, um, it makes much more sense. But yeah, I don't think I needed to see illustrations in this case. Uh, Sometimes I think for picture books that are more um, for younger children, I think illustration becomes, it is part of the text, right? And for most illustrated books. But yeah, no, I think I was, yes, I was very curious to see them, but I didn't feel the need. I was just so into the text that was like plenty for me during the whole process.
That's great. Um, oh, Laura asked, was there a story in the book that was especially meaningful or personal for you? Which is a really great question and hard to answer. I think that each story was really meaningful as I went along. I mean, I know that's, huh. Yeah, they just all were just because Tahoe is so meaningful to me. And the more I researched, the more meaningful they all became because it was fascinating researching. I especially enjoyed drawing the wildlife. And it was tough. I think one of the tough things was that Tahoe is so beautiful, and yet I was focusing on drawing trash and stuff that I don't want to think about, but I had to. So I think that it was nice to have that reprieve to work on the animals and some of the beautiful scenery and so that I think that was most meaningful to me anytime I got to do that. Um, there's really nice. Thank you all so much for all the kind words for both of us. It's really great. Um, I don't see any more questions. Mari, was there anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, yeah, maybe just like the question that you got, was there anything
Yeah,
that was more meaningful than others? I think they were all beautiful, and some of them were hard, um living duck waste, and then seeing birds cut with plastic bags and dog poop spread around in their habitat. It was hard. It was really, I think there were some of the stories that it was sad. It was, I was happy to be doing it, but then also it was hard some of the time, sometimes to learn or to remember or to uh, you know get a deeper knowledge of what's really happening out there, like when the selfies and dropping food, giving food to the animals just for taking a selfie. And so it was they I think they were all meaningful. Again, I think it would be hard to choose one, but yeah, I think I wanted to say that this book, hopefully I will be sharing it with in my story time. I started doing story time long ago, many years ago. We all went virtual in 2020, and I moderate two groups. One is for children and one is for adults. It's bilingual story time, where I use children's books and poems and short story in two languages. And definitely this this will be a story that, again, I'm the translator here. I have to, I'm part of it now, and I'm so happy for that and proud. And so sharing with our children, it's very important. They are, and these stories are not, aimed specifically to children, but for all ages. So I think we all can take that responsibility to share this book with as many people as possible, young and old. We always learn something from a picture book. Um, and I just wanted to extend the invitation. And hopefully I can meet some of you when I go to Lake Tahoe next in about 6 weeks or so. Yeah, I never been there. When I first started this project, I was calling Lake Tahoe and I saw beautiful pictures, but then I also saw the devastating pictures of, why this book was necessary to be made. So hopefully we all join forces and spread the word about this book.
Yeah, that's very well said, Mari, for sure. Um, just share, be open and curious and keep looking into stuff and share with each other and connect with each other. We don't have to have a battleground out there.
Yeah, when sharing this event the past few days, one of my cousins who was here earlier, she asked, "How do I help?" And
Yeah,
I thought that was the best
that's
question I
wonderful.
could ever get when I share something like this. So I told her, one was like coming today, right? And support and learn about it, what my cousin is up to. And the other ones are, downloading the book, reading it, sharing
Yeah,
it, taking what's useful in it, not just everywhere we go.
yeah.
And so because this can be applied, anywhere. And yeah, and spread the work and keep on using our you know voices and talents for to care for our planet.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's great. Well, Mari, I appreciate you so much and thank you for being here to speak because I think that that's an important thing for you to be here. And it's great that people got to hear from you because I don't know that I've heard from translators as much on the books that they've worked on. And it's just so interesting. And I love talking to you and having you here. So thank you.
Likewise, yeah,
And
thank you. It was definitely a great project and it was meant to be.
yeah,
Uh,
it was so awesome. And thank you all for being here. I just appreciate you all so much too. And for you taking the time to come spend with us today and download the book, share the book, and I don't know, do your
yeah,
thing.
and follow us on
Yep.
in our links, say hello, stop by,
Yeah,
and support. Yeah, that all
for sure.
counts. As little as you might think it counts, reacting with a like, with a heart,
Yeah.
sharing the word, sharing the links, all helps, all counts.
It does, and it also all of that also helps for future projects to get funded too. So appreciate you all for being so supportive. It's really been amazing. So thank you.